Good morning and welcome to Community Roundtable, a free public service brought to you on AM 1590 KDJS. If you're a member of a nonprofit organization and would like to be featured on the program, call the KDJS Newsline at 320-235-2900. That's 320-235-2900.
Community Roundtable today on AM 1590 and FM 105.7, KDJS in Wilmer. Al Sheldon here. State Senator Andrew Lange going to join us now. The session starts on Tuesday in St. Paul. Where does time fly, Andy? Boy, things go quickly, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. We gavelled out in May, and now we're starting right back up again in January. So it's a quick off season.
And there's a lot on the table, as always, and this year a lot of people are curious about, extra money, I guess, which isn't a bad problem, is it?
Yeah, extra money, right. The difficult part is always, with that extra money comes a lot of extra ideas, I guess you could say. So, yeah, it's a funny thing, in the first year I was in 2017, you have 15 minutes for everybody that comes in your office, and you always have an idea of how you can spend that 1.54. And I assume that in this year it's going to be no different, and we'll probably try to spend that twice over. So
yeah, there'll be a lot more requests than there is cash on hand, no matter how much cash there might be, right?
Yeah, it's a funny problem to have. So,
as you talk, a lot of people are probably wondering, what do you do in the run up to Tuesday, the 8th of January, just a couple days away here as we talk. You're busy doing a lot of other stuff right now, also known as Army duty, right?
Yeah, yep. So I'm still in the National Guard, so I'm doing my, my 1 week in a month, 2 weeks in the summer type duty, as well as working full time. So I just got off my last shift prior to the session starting. So yeah, it's you gotta being a legislator in Minnesota was always intended on being a part-time job, and when you get to session, it ends up being a lot more than that. And obviously in the off season, we're all pretty busy as well, doing our own things as well as the legislative stuff. So we tend to ramp up. In any other year, there's always the unknown of how the session's going to go. And this year, we have a new governor and a new House majority, so we will. The numbers stay the same in the Senate, but we will definitely have a little different playing field when it comes to what goes on in St. Paul this fall or this spring. So, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to working with the new governor, and we will see how it all goes.
What have your constituents been talking with you about? What seems to be top of the mind here among the people around our area?
Well, it's funny. Some of the big things that haven't changed. At least as far as our district is concerned. The big thing that kind of happened last year that we have just a couple of I's and T's to do as far as getting finished up is that Montevideo Vets Home. It's a pretty coming from my standpoint, it's a pretty amazing thing when a community comes together like that and works and gets a project finished. And, just so everybody knows, that's a pretty substantial deal for that community. It's a pretty substantial deal for the district. And it's a great big deal for Minnesota. So it's amazing that got done. Some of the folks are pretty concerned about, the governor has come out pretty strong against, for gun control. He's come out pretty strong for a 25-cent gas tax. He's definitely laid his menu items on the table pretty early. So we've been dealing with a lot of emails, a lot of calls that people are concerned. Obviously a 25-cent gas tax. That hits upstate Minnesota a lot harder than it hits folks in the metro. We drive a lot more out here than what they do in the cities, and that's I call it an aggressive tax where it's going to hurt us and our businesses a lot more out here. There's a lot of folks that are worried about losing some rights on guns, and I guess I can't be not a little concerned myself when the governor, 2 days after he's elected, came out and said, "Yep, we're going to do this." And I, for one, will probably work pretty hard to stop some of the ideas he has. So, there's a lot of misinformation out there when it comes to guns, and I guess if I can do one thing, at least I can educate people on exactly what the statistics are, or what the true cost of all these things are, and what that means. And and then there's always concerns about, this is a budget year, so it's going to be a longer, drawn out year. It's we got to go through everything. Education funding is always number one on the issue. I mean, it's our number one priority in the state of Minnesota. We don't spend more money on any one thing than we do education. So, then transportation, I got moved onto a transportation committee this year. It seemed like I had got my my nose into a little bit of transportation issue just by being in the legislature and pushing hard for Highway 23. I mean, you guys kind of remember how that went, and it kind of happened in a strange way at the governor's fishing opener. But all that being said, it did get done, or will get getting done over the next few years. So that's a good thing. But yeah, it's I'm looking forward to it, and there's a lot of, as anybody says, there's a lot of ins and outs, and a lot of all day going at it. So
a lot of issues, man. Yeah, a lot of us are with you on the gun issue. There are so many different misunderstood things that
absolutely.
I guess that people don't get.
It really, my background, I guess I kind of went down there assuming that people were aware of what they were talking about, and I tell you what, just the terminology alone, it just gets to me how much it's misused. Even from people that you would think would know better, but
yeah, it really gets twisted up.
It sure does.
You wish it didn't, but what do you do? And the gas tax thing, I've heard people talking about the fact that hey, why are we doing a gas tax when we have $1.54 billion in surplus?
Oh no, it's absolutely. And if you just put 1.54, that's no joke money. I mean, now that is a huge chunk of money that in all honesty, Minnesotans were overtaxed. And you try to estimate. We have a balanced budget amendment in Minnesota, and we try to abide by that as closely and as down to the ultimately at the end of your forecast and at the end of your fiscal cycle, you want that number to be zero, where you spent everything you said you were going to spend and you didn't spend any more, and you didn't tax any more than you needed. Obviously, that's a moving target, and it's almost impossible to hit one way or the other. But it's it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So why would we increase taxes? There's other taxes that have already been talked about being increased. And in a year when you have a surplus, that always is going to be a hard sell, at least for me. Also, the economy is doing so well right now that I think we're all have to be a little cognizant of the fact that the economy might not always be doing so well. So we should be, everything. We have a rainy day fund. By law, there's going to be money going into that. We always will try to be fiscally responsible as possible. At least that's my intent. There is, there is speed bumps along the way, obviously, where there's big money that's being spent on things where I don't think it needs to be spent. And I guess that's, if that's part of the reason I'm here is that, I don't think we need a $2 billion train that goes 15 miles or whatever it is in the Southwest Metro that so many other politicians are pretty excited about. And I mean, I heard on the radio the other day that's about each inch of track is about $3,000 for that price. So
wow.
It's pretty amazing.
That is
that we're going to
crazy.
spend money on something like that, and then we're going to raise taxes to pay for roads. So, I'd sure like to have a small portion of that to pay for roads in western Minnesota. But
now you look at it, Minnesota right now, if not the top tax state in the union, it's one of the top states. My wife and I were just on a road trip recently to see family over the holidays, and once we left the state, for instance, we paid at the most $1.95 for gas. We paid $1.73 on one fill up. So it's like we've got the extra money there. Why raise taxes even more? That's a lot of people are kind of hoping that doesn't happen, obviously. But is it going to be possible to work across the aisle? I mean, having the Democratic leadership and
absolutely. Yep.
It'll be something that won't be too hard. How's that been for you the last couple of years?
No, and that's I try to be as honest with people as I can about the fact that 95% of what we do in St. Paul is all bipartisan. It's the stuff that makes the headlines in the news. Obviously, is where we're butting heads and not and disagreeing on some things. And there's a lot of disagreement within our own parties, and I think that's the way it should be. I mean, everybody, and I've said this before, but everybody thinks gridlock is such a horrible thing, and it's like, well, if you're not doing something because you disagree so vehemently on it, then maybe it shouldn't be done. And maybe it's something that we're going to take a harder, deeper look at, and it's just, that's the way it is. So, but yeah, bipartisanship. I work with Democrats all the time. I mean, more than half, probably 99% of all of my bills have had Democratic authors on it. So it's not, and I don't mean to downplay the controversy that goes on in the Capitol by any means, but for the most part, it's a very functional system. It's the best system in the world as far as I'm concerned. Here in Minnesota, we are highly taxed, and we're a traditionally very Democratic blue state, and I'm not afraid to say that's when we're blue and we tax ourselves highly like that. That's the argument we're going to have in today and in the future. Is how much should we be taxing ourselves? I think if you've been watching the news the last few days, Minnesota is number one. In several different publications, we are the worst tax state in the nation. So it's been a long road to get to that statistic, but we pay a lot in taxes. There is no doubt. The upside to it is that we have a lot of reforms that we can be doing. We have a surplus right now where we can reduce some of those taxes. There's good news in the horizon if we keep working there. So.
Oh yeah. So you've been in a couple of years. What's it been like in making deals? I mean, from what I hear, sometimes you've got to help another guy out so he in turn can help you out with a project. How much of that goes on?
Oh, quite a bit. It's there. Whether you want to call it quid pro quo or if it's something that there are certain projects that the district needs, or where hey, there's a list of, or for example, I'm trying to think of something that's happened in the past where, there's really nothing that if it fits within your personal guidelines on what is right and what is not, then for the most part, if it's the spending is within reason and the project is valid, if it's something that government should be involved with, I don't have a problem supporting it. And I hope that whether you're Democrat or Republican, you can say the same thing for a project or an issue that I have. And for the most part, an example that one of the bigger things I worked on was the Benson biomass plant over the last couple of years, and you can remember how that project has kind of it isn't what I would call an ideal bill or an ideal situation to be put in, especially as a freshman legislator, where I was kind of put to the wall on that, and it wasn't necessarily a Democrat or Republican, but it was both sides of the aisle kind of not agreeing on how to proceed with that. There was the Prairie Island tribe was closely involved, as well as Excel, and at the end of the day, if I went to had Democratic support from Senator Marty or Senator Ron Latz, who obviously they gave me some of the harshest criticism on that is what I could have, but without their support at the end of the day, that probably wouldn't have happened. And we're part of a party that a lot of times doesn't agree on things, but it was a bipartisan thing. We all kind of recognize the situation, the state, and those the city of Benson and some of those contractors were put in by what the state had done. So, sometimes it is a little bit cleanup from your predecessors and, what they thought was a good idea in the early 90s. And, it's an interesting job, Al. I'll tell you that much.
I'll bet, yeah. Something you mentioned earlier, I want to recognize again. You mentioned the Veterans Home in Montevideo. Just a tip of the hat to the family there. That was a heck of a donation, Gosh, over $2 million.
Man,
wow.
Right. Yeah, just, it always amazes me when someone shows generosity like that. And, it makes me feel like I should be giving more, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Man, it's amazing. It's an amazing thing, and really that is kind of the icing on the cake. That the Williams family is like I told them, I said, I wish I would have known your brother. Now that he's passed away, I probably won't get obviously not going to get that opportunity, but I think I probably would have liked the guy. He seemed like a genuine good individual. I met his brothers. We all sat around, had some coffee during the ceremony, and it was a pretty cool experience, in all honesty.
You look at people that have worked hard, and all of a sudden, just out of the blue, there it is.
Oh yeah, it's an amazing thing. So, he had a successful career, and he was a military guy, and you kind of have a little pull on your heartstring a little bit when any time a military guy can do something like that for his community, and it was pretty neat. So.
Super deal for sure. Well, Andy, we appreciate you taking some time here. Gosh, this has been great. Great to chat. I know you've got a busy day starting on Tuesday, and we look forward to emails, phone calls, whatever we can do to hook up and kind of keep us in touch here with what's happening in the Senate. Okay.
Sounds good. Thanks, Al.
All right, State Senator Andrew Lange joining us today. And now joining us is State Representative Tim Miller. And, Tim, we welcome you in here on a Sunday morning. Boy, a couple days from now, off to St. Paul, huh? Are you ready for another session?
Good morning, Al. Yeah, it's certainly good to be home right now, but yes, I'll be leaving here tomorrow, as a matter of fact, to head into St. Paul and get things ready for session.
There's a lot of things going on, of course, with the House of Representatives here for the state of Minnesota. You've been there a while now. What are you expecting for this year as compared to years gone by? Will it be real different, or?
Well, it's going to be a little different for me. My first 4 years that I've served, my first two terms were in the majority, and the Republicans have fallen into the minority for this session. So it's going to be new responsibilities for me, a new focus, and a new outlook on what I'd like to see get done.
And what kind of plans are you looking at for accomplishments that you have on the wish list, as some people call it? I know you've talked with your constituents. What are they telling you?
Well, what my constituents want to see is there's a couple areas. We, of course, still have something that really shot up in priority for me a couple of years ago was health care. Probably most focused on health insurance and how to make that affordable, accessible for health care. And so I'll certainly I keep a lot of my attention on that. I need to be a loud voice for greater Minnesota. I think we have some distinct issues here just because of the makeup. So many people out here are on individual health care plans as opposed to group or large corporations or things like that. Or farmers, of course. Their insurance needs are a little bit different. So I hope to be a voice in that. We did not get done. Well, we got done the tax conformity bill, but Governor Dayton vetoed it, and so that's going to be a top priority for our small businesses, that we get that conformity in place, first of all, so that they can do their taxes in a clear and comprehensive way, do their tax filings, but also to lessen the burden on them. Our small businesses get hit pretty hard in Minnesota, and what we had passed last year gave them some relief. So I certainly hope that we're able to do that again this year.
Yeah, not only some tax relief that could be done without even looking at the budget surplus. There are some things we obviously could maybe take a step back on because we're obviously getting taxed a lot. Look at the money in the bank,
Yeah, tax surplus for the state of Minnesota is kind of our inside politics way of saying that we overcharge the citizens of Minnesota. There's more revenue coming in than what's needed to run Minnesota, the government. And I certainly hope that through tax relief, we give that back to the people of Minnesota, the hardworking Minnesotans.
Isn't it tough to hear the incoming governor say, I want to raise the gas tax, 25 cents a gallon or whatever. That seems like a lot, you know?
We have a $1.5 billion surplus, and he wants to raise the gas tax. That's concerning for me. I won't be supporting him in that. There's plenty of money. Sort of the thing that I remind people all the time is Minnesota does not have a revenue problem. The state of Minnesota government does not have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem, and we need to prioritize things. We've got plenty of money to accomplish the goals and the interest for the citizens of Minnesota, and we need to stay within that. And to come in with a gas tax really is just a way to increase those revenues so that that money can be spent in ways that probably don't need to be spent.
When you look at it from a personal standpoint, it's like, what do we do when we don't have the money? We don't spend. You know, in this case, the money happens to be there, so we really don't need to probably spend as much. My personal view, anyway. Gosh.
Well, that's my. I think you speak the voice of a lot of people, a lot of the citizens of Minnesota, and I certainly agree with that. This is not a time to be increasing taxes.
Especially on gas. As I was telling Senator Lange a few minutes ago, before you and I got together here on the phone this morning, we were just on a trip out of state, and as soon as we crossed the state line, the price of gas went down, you know, all the way down to $1.73 a gallon in one spot. So I'm like, wow, that was amazing to see that, you know.
Well, we have, I believe right now, if nothing were to change, I believe that for every gallon of gas in Minnesota, through state and federal taxes, 34 cents per gallon is going into the coffers. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of money. That's plenty of revenue. Another concern of mine is I was on the transportation committee for 2 years, so I got to know this pretty good, talking with the local MnDOT people, mm-hmm. which they're fantastic. We have some of the best in the state in our district, so people should be proud of the people that work for MnDOT here. And everyone seems to agree that the roads that probably have the top priority are what I'd call the more local roads. So county roads, in-town roads, there's some state highways, but, you know, a lot of the township roads, we have a lot of work to be done there, and the gas tax goes towards trunk highway funds, which the trunk highway certainly needs to be kept up. But if we increase the taxes, I've been reminding people that county road that we want to fix, the gas tax doesn't go towards that. We still need to find revenue for that.
Yeah, gosh, you would think there would be some math done there, like X amount for this, X amount for that, to help the counties out with this and that. If we've got the money there, kind of seems like the pie could be divided up, right?
Yeah, and you know, one of the challenges we have is the road and bridge needs we have in greater Minnesota here again are different than they are in the Twin Cities or the suburbs. You know, where we don't have to worry about capacity, we have to worry more about quality. Mm-hmm. You know, freight that goes over our roads, a lot of the freight that we have is agriculture based. You know, to give the extreme, we quite literally have eggs from Wilmer Poultry going over the road. Well, they need smooth surfaces. And then we also need things like shoulders that are broad enough for our bigger pieces of equipment to recognize the weight of the trucks. Those are some of the things that we need to look at, which are, you know, distinctly different than how many more cars are going to be driving in the suburbs. And they have their needs too, so I don't want to discount that. But a lot of what we're talking about with the gas tax is just not going to address the needs of greater Minnesota.
Boy, shoulders on a highway get taken for granted. Case in point, the Friday before New Year's weekend, we were headed south, and it was State Highway 4. And a vehicle started fishtailing on the ice that was coming in the northbound lane. We were in the southbound lane. I'm like, okay, I need to get over. Thankfully, they were able to fishtail and stay in their lane before going into the ditch, I might add. But yeah, I didn't have much room to go to the right to try to avoid them even further. You know, shoulders, we take them for granted. I kind of like shoulders on the highway, I guess, you know.
I do too, especially in the two lanes. Well, my most often road of discussion is Highway 40 from Wilmer out to Milan.
Yeah.
You know, the way that was built was good when they built it. You know, nice solid road, but there's very little shoulder, and they built up the road by digging the ditches, so you have a steep drop off when you get off the road. And I've talked to John Hughesby at MnDOT about that, and he agrees. But how do you fund 40 miles of building up shoulders? That just doesn't that's atypical to the way that they look at where to fund things. And so that's the sort of challenge that we face out here. And those are the things that I really hope to champion in St. Paul and be a voice for. And hopefully we can find ways to improve those things.
Something I did not touch on was Senator Lange. Do you feel the federal government shutdown affecting us here at all, a whole lot in our area?
I haven't heard anyone. No one's called me or emailed me saying this is how it's affecting me. I know they call it a partial shutdown. Nothing like government to come up with catchphrases that probably don't mean anything. But no, I haven't had anyone that's contacted me saying they're missing on services in any way.
Something that you hear them say, well, we're shutting down the unnecessary parts of our government right now. So doesn't it make you think, okay, if they're unnecessary, do we need them?
That's exactly right. Well, a couple of years back when they had the more pronounced shutdown for a few days there, I thought it was very symbolic. I don't know if you've ever been to the World War II monument, or the place there in Washington D.C.
Mm-hmm.
And have you ever been there?
I have not. My wife has been there probably a couple different times with work she did.
It's remarkable. It's incredible. But just to show the logic here, it's basically an open court area. It's very large. Mm-hmm. So when I say court, it's a very large court. But the public is free to walk through it and look around at the monuments and stuff like that. And they have, to a degree, a level of security there. You don't want people vandalizing and stuff, but it's pretty open. Well, when they shut down government, I was told they actually had to bring in rental fencing to put up around it, and then they had to post security there so no one could go in it. So it actually cost more during the shutdown for the World War II memorial
wow.
when it was normally open. And that's one of those government oxymorons.
Yeah.
When I was in the military, we always had a lot of those going on. But yeah, so hopefully this shutdown gets figured out. I applaud President Trump on standing firm on. I do think we need to have a more secure border, and he's putting that up as the reason why he's not going to move forward. And hopefully they can figure this out soon.
He's done a lot of good things, albeit maybe in an unorthodox way occasionally. But there are some things getting done, and yeah, you do have to tip your hat,
Well, and I really appreciate. Unorthodox is probably for some people even a light term. He's definitely taking things a different way. But one thing that I really believe that the citizens of the United States have said is government needs to work for us, and it needs to work different than it has been. And he has certainly shaken that up. And I think that's been good. I think a lot of what's happening in the federal government could extend down to the state government. And, I really believe in any organization, much less something as big as a state, but any organization needs to relook at things, not do the status quo all the time, shake things up. That's where you learn how to do things better, more efficiently, and we certainly can use that in both state and federal government.
Yeah. Like I say, anybody who's a businessman or anybody who has a bank account, you learn efficiency and how to keep things on the right side of the line, so to speak. Going to be tough working in a minority? What do you think?
Well, it changes the rules. It's certainly tough. There's things that I'd like to get accomplished that, the bills may not get a hearing. But this is how government works, and I certainly am going to be a voice. I'm not going to stay quiet on things that I think that are important for my district in the state of Minnesota. And so, as I said in the beginning, my role has changed, but I look forward to doing it. I'm energized and ready to go.
And Tim, on a final note, you can educate myself here, and I'm sure some other folks too, as you work together with a new small group of fellow representatives in a new caucus, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So there's 4 of us that have decided that we're going to caucus on our own. Now, that this is something that's really deep into the weeds. Really, a caucus is nothing more than a free association. It's who we identify with. But, for the people of my district in this area, I think the 2 most important things to understand is number one, in a large part, the things that I've done to this point and will continue to do won't change at all. This has not changed anything. Now, to the advantage of my district, what this really does is this frees me to stay focused. People have been very loud and clear. Make government work. You need to make it work. And what we're doing here in this small caucus is just kind of getting out of the status quo, and we're going to do things in a way that better serve our own districts. And that's probably what people will see most is I'll be able to more directly affect the things. It's a long discussion for another time as to exactly how the caucus system works in Minnesota, but it can sometimes be a controlling factor that we would rather not have as representatives of the people of our district.
All righty. Talking with State Representative Tim Miller, Princeburg area. Tim, we appreciate you spending some time with us here. It goes by way too fast, so I look forward to chatting with you again here as our new session gets underway and gets rolling, and we'll be hooking up again, all right?
Sounds great. I wish everyone a great new year. I'm looking forward to it, and let's talk anytime.
State Rep Tim Miller, and that is Community Roundtable.
You've been listening to Community Roundtable, a free public service brought to you on AM 1590 KDJS. If you're a member of a nonprofit organization and would like to be featured on the program, call the KDJS Newsline at 320-235-2900. That's 320-235-2900.